exactly why I come here to get beat up every Monday. Okay, and John's giving me the signal to start the program. I want to welcome everybody here at allpointstv.com. I'm George Moss again here at allpointstv.com, the program called What's Going On. And we are here every Monday from 2 o'clock to 3. And we want to thank our partners over there at WFOV, that's 92.1. And those persons that are affiliated with that station, Mr. Paul Herring and others. I have a good friend over there, Victor Johnson, who is one of the stars over there. I want to thank all of you for joining in the enterprise here at allpointstv.com. And we want to thank you for your leadership, because you're doing some great things here in the city of Atlanta. We're just trying to follow in your footsteps and do what we can do to kind of edify and control our part of the bargain. And if we are up to the level that you are, then we are doing something right here at the studio. I want you to watch all the programs here at allpointstv.com. They have some very good programming here you can't find anywhere else. And I can testify to the technical parts of it. You don't see them in front of the cameras. They're not, I guess you have to say, they're not camera hogs like we are. But I can assure you of one thing. These programs do not go on if we don't have people operating in the background. And we may seem like we are, quote unquote, the all in all and the stars, whatever you want to call us here in front of the cameras, but we are not nearly the justification for this program going forward. This program goes forward because there are a lot of people here, lighting technicians and sound technicians. And John Wilson is a jack of all trades, and we depend upon him for all these cameras you see in here right now. And I keep saying this because I'm so impressed with it. Well, when I first came here, I'll tell you first of all how John Wilson and I met. I was coming out of the university, and John, I don't know if you remember this or not. I came out of the university, and John was talking to a mutual friend, and I didn't know him from Adam, but I stopped by to chat, and in our chat, John asked me to come to the studio and do a program. And I was kind of hesitant about doing it. My schedule's already pretty full. And he kept asking, I kept putting it off. So I decided finally to come in and see what it was like and see if I could fit into the mold here at the studio. And I came in, the first program we did was very, very raw. I was not used to being in front of the camera. And I felt like I was putting on a production. When you're in the classroom, you just kind of, you have your notes and you're doing what you have done ever since you started in the profession. And I won't even tell you when I started in the profession, but starting something new was very different for me, and I had to learn how you do this piece. I'm not so sure I've learned it even at this point, but 8 years ago when I first started, I was like what Sean Hannity says he was when he first started his programming with Fox Network, and he said he was just terrible. So I may be bad now, but I'm not nearly as bad now as I was then. If you haven't seen any improvement, go back and watch those programs, and you'll see. But I'm glad to have you with us, and we are just elated over the fact that we have a growing viewership here at allpointstv.com. And Paul Herring's audience is brought into our arena, and we're glad to have them aboard as well. And we'll be adding to their viewership over there, their listenership over there, because they are a podcast radio program and station, and they're doing some things within their frame of reference. We're both audio and visual, and they are an audio studio, and they're doing a very good job over there on University Drive. They're in the other university area of the city. Okay, let me talk about a couple of topics here. I wanted to say something. I don't want to let the month go by without me saying a few things about Black History Month. And I do want to pay some homage to the person that's the founding of this time period, which was a time in which the idea of blacks having a history was being denied all over the United States and pretty much all over the world, coming out of the colonial period in Africa, where you couldn't say all the things that Africa represented, because how do you make those claims, the claims of history, and at the same time be involved in a denial of the humanity of the group that has been colonized. And that became necessary for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into this time, but maybe in the future we'll get a chance to talk about it in more extensive detail when we have a single topic we want to cover. But I just want to say on the QT and running that the reason why the peculiarities of the colonial period was such in the West, different from other parts of the world, was because the West had certain moral strictures in place that it had to go around in order to justify the advent of colonialism. And so therefore, in order to have it practiced, because of the claims that were being made, such as all men are created equal and that they are born with certain inalienable rights, and among which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or some of the things that are being said in England by some of the people that were, into a more abolitionist mode of thinking. To get around that, you had to get involved in the dehumanizing the population so as to justify the incarceration aspect of their relationship to those in the colonies. And that's why you have this different perch in which it stood in the West than it did in other parts of the world, not because the morality was lower in the West than it was in the Western world, but because of the fact that there were these claims that were being made about the oneness of humankind, and then to disaggregate that then and have slaves, unlike where you have slaves everywhere else in the world. It wasn't unique to the United States. Slavery was a practice that was pandemic all over the world, but wasn't all over the world, where these claims were being made in the West to exclusion of other parts of the world, and they had to then do something that would have surrounded those moral claims and get around it so that it did not invidiate against the standings that were in place at that time. And it's not the only accommodation was made, by the way. You can see that the accommodation was made the same way in the Constitution, where they had to make some accommodations because of the fact that the Constitution came out of an embodiment of ideas that were first of all expressed by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence. And then 11 years later, in 1787, when they're in Philadelphia, they are trying to draw up a document that would strengthen the Articles of Confederation. They had to now configure how they're going to do this piece, bring up a document, bring into existence a document that would have recognized certain things already in place so they can glue the nation together. And in order to do that, they had to make some restitution with institutions already existence, and that's what they did, with the idea that it would be that the republic would be further refined in the future, because you solve some problems, and then there's some problems you're not going to solve in that time period. You have to pass those problems off to be solved in the future. Not all the problems, but some of them that cannot be invidiated against during that time period, but because you're trying to do some things differently there that you will not be doing later on, more attention can be placed upon resolving the rest of it later on down the line when those issues are no longer extant as they are at that time. And that's why some things you do and then some things you don't do. But the idea is that you are not finished with the project. The project, by the way, of this country being having refined its dogma and its dogmatic practices, that job will never be done. Every generation has to do the refinement based upon its own claims and its own needs. And we need not, in making those adjustments, I want to say this very, very clearly, in making those adjustments does not mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is what these people are talking about now. They're running for president. And I'm going to be writing about this tomorrow in part 2. I'm doing a 3-part series right now on Facebook. And what I'll be writing about tomorrow in part 2 of a series I started today, and I'll be doing 2 more parts to it. Be finishing up on Wednesday. And what I'm trying to say is, we have people right now trying to fundamentally change America. That's what they say. we're going to fundamentally transform the country. In whose name? And can I ask this question without anybody getting mad? Based upon whose authority? Who asked these people? Maybe you have a name for me. Who asked these people to transform this country as if they have the singularity of understandings of what needs to be changed in the embodiment of their own thought process, and they have enough within themselves to transform the nation because of what? They are know-it-alls? Let me tell you something. There were, at one time, 55 people in that room in Philadelphia, and they're trying to ferret out how they're going to do this piece in terms of throwing a document out they had found out through trial and error and through the practicalities of trying to apply it in society. They were trying to figure out how can they in fact do what the articles were intended to do, which was restrict power and restrain it from going out of control. How would they be able to do that? At the same time, they would maintain a certain amount of betrothal to the power structure. How would you restrain it while in fact giving it more power? And that's a major issue that has to be resolved before they are willing to put their name, their John Hancock, on a document. Not after they had fought 11 years earlier and coming from under the umbrella, under the boot, the stormtrooper boots of King George III. They're not willing to go back under that particular governmental structure where they can be further oppressed, but this time at their own hands. So they wanted to find some way to relinquish some of the power that they had not allowed to accrue to the central government. At the same time, they had seen that what they had put in place, the Articles of Confederation, those 13 articles, were not enough power invested in the central authority so as to allow it to do anything. In other words, by restricting it so much, it wasn't able to do the work of the central authority, which was to be an umbrella protection for all of the entities. The whole is equal to some of its parts, so every part of it had to be able to function as a whole with the umbrella above it to be the overarching protector of the 13 constituent parts. And that was a very great idea. The question is, how were you going to accomplish it? It was only through having found out that what they had put in place would not work, because it so debilitated the central government that it could not respond to crises. So they now got to come back to the table and try to figure out not where they went wrong. They knew where they went wrong. The question was what we're going to put in there as an antidote to it. And that antidote is still being refined, but what they came up with there, no one man put it in place, and no one person can fix it. And I am really asking of anyone standing in front of me, in front of us as a country, I am asking of anyone that stands up here talking about they are going to fundamentally transform this country as if they singularly can put in place out of their own thought process, which is limited just by the individuality of it. They can come in and they have the wherewithal and knowledge and whatever else it takes to put in place things that will in fact transform that which it took them 8 days short of 3 months of putting in place, with 55 original people sitting in that room trying to in fact get this right. And they got a lot of it right. More than 90 some odd percent of it right. The rest that they didn't have right, they put in the Article 5 that allowed for future generations that would suborn some of what they did, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but getting to refine it, allow for that to go on, because other understandings will in fact occur based upon some things that are not in the purview of those that were in that room in Philadelphia. And so that's in Article 5 where the document you allow the document to be amended. But let me say something very clearly to these scholars out here, if I can find any, because I'll tell you something. The ones I'm listening to on these television programs, particularly you scholars talking about what you know about impeachment, because I can tell you right now, everything you're saying is wrong. I'm here to challenge you on it, because what I'm hearing from what you're saying and what you're saying the document says, what I'm hearing is that you're not very literate, and some of you, I suspect, if not most of you, have a reading problem, particularly from what you're saying about what it takes to bring about impeachment. Because the Constitution does not say, and I dare you to show me where it says it, that in order to impeach you must have the charge of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. I dare you to show it to me in the Constitution, because it's not there in the place where you say it should be if it in fact is a claim made about what it takes to bring about impeachment. Because impeachment is found in Article 1 of the Constitution, and you got to explain why it is that treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors is in Article 2 of the Constitution, which is not about the impeachment process. It's about the use of the process in Article 2. You don't even understand that. And what you're saying here is something that indicates a real problem this country has, because the scholars have, if they ever had their way, they've lost their way, because they've been captured. And I'm going to say this without anybody contradicting it. They may try to contradict it, but it's a proven fact, and that is they've been captured by the government grants, and that's why they are walking as parrots in the blueprint of the government. When the government says something, they say it. If the government says the globe is warming because of carbon emissions, then the parrots on these college campuses and universities find some way of validating that. If they say they want to have the healthcare system taken over, they get this nut over here at MIT, Jonathan Gruber, and they get him to, in fact, write the proposal. And then behind the American people's back, this guy, this scholar, has the nerve to laugh behind the American people's back, talking about how stupid they are. And the question is, how stupid is he for putting that in front of the American people, knowing then that he's in fact making a bogus claim? This idea you can add a layer of cost over the medical costs in this country, and somehow you can in fact lower the cost by adding to the cost. And he wants to talk about the American people are stupid. How stupid is a person that would write that kind of program, and then on top of it make that claim? The stupidity does not start outward. It starts at the person that generated this nonsense. And we have got to get a handle on that. And these people are talking about carbon. Let me let you in a little secret here. I won't say it all right now, because it's going to take a whole hour to deal just with this issue of the carbon emissions. But let me just tell you something. If you go into any science class and there's any science being taught of any to any level, it will tell you that these molecules have a carbon connection. You will look at these molecular claims that nature makes, and look at carbon being the connectivity of carbon to those molecules that make these other things that are compounds, and so on and so forth. And then you ask yourself the question, then, how can it be both let me say what it is. Carbon is a cosmic glue. And how can it, since everything is connected to carbon, we're connected to carbon also. That's why you breathe oxygen, right? And then what do you let out? You let out something for the trees to take in. You let out carbon dioxide. So the carbon, okay. Just take my word for it. You don't have to wait to exhale. You will exhale or you're going to fall out because nature demands that you give it up. You're going to give it up. You're going to give the carbon up. And there's no way to avoid that. So then let me say this then. Those persons that are teaching about the danger of carbon emissions, they are actually teaching that which is anti-life. We have nuts passing as scholars in this country. These people that are running this country are sick. And if the society was not that way, they would not dare say the things they're saying to us today. Let me say this also. I was listening to, Franco Harris, the football player that played with the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day when they had Mean Joe Green and those persons. He made a comment the other day, very appropriate. He said if Kobenek, if they had had a person on their team and really a person inside of the NFL at that time, if he had done what Kobenek had done, they would have had a problem. There would have been a meeting. It wouldn't have been a meeting in the ladies' room. There's a song out. It'd been a meeting in the locker room. Because Franco Harris said if that had happened and he had demeaned the team at that time, they would have had a meeting with Mr. Kobenek. And it would not have been a friendly meeting. These guys, he's not talking about trying to win him over. They're talking about physically confronting him on it. And the point I'm making of bringing that in is just to show you how much we've changed just in that time period from the time in which Franco Harris was playing the game and how much has changed. I don't know exactly what year he retired, but I can tell you that it has not been 20 years. So in less than a generation, then, if you say 20 years is a generation, then less than a generation, we have now come to this part at a pivotal point in our history. We're now at the crossroads of that moment where we got some decisions to make. And we don't have a lot of time in order to make those decisions because the people that are in fact running for the highest office in the country are now coming out of the woodwork, and they're no longer trying to hide who it is that they are. They are now coming out of the woodwork and telling us right in front of our face who they are, and they're doing it before they even get into the office. They're telling us they're going to fundamentally transform this country, and they're saying it as if we have given them permission to do so. They're not seeking our permission. They are seeking our acceptance, and they are demanding that we be quiet about it, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. And what did Walter Cronkite say? And that's the way it is. And he spoke 30 minutes, and that's the way it is for the rest of the day. But that's the way it is for me, and that's the way it is for me for this day, and it'll be that the same way tomorrow and the rest of the days that I'm here. And so nothing's going to change in that regard. But we have to, be attentive to what's going on and take some ownership of it and take some responsibility for it. Because this world was made for all men, all women, all people. I heard that somewhere. And that's as true as anything can be. But it ain't made for everybody to be here and try to tell that to these people running for borderless society, because what they're doing is they're creating a formula for disaster. And what they're really trying to do, if you want to be honest about it, they're trying to destroy this country because they hate the name and also the energy in whose name this country was in fact created. They do not like James Madison and George Washington, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, you name them. And then you get down here to 45, and before he even takes office, they're saying impeach 45. And they're saying that because 45 went around them and went right to the American people, which is what his Twitter is about, and they wish he would stop doing the Twitter because it is the way he maintains direct contact with the American people, and they want to sever that. That's why they're making this claim about he's always on Twitter. Well, yes, he's on Twitter because of what you're saying about him in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And he gets around it by talking directly to the American people, and they do not want that direct contact because they want the contact to come through them so they can tell the American people because they want to be empowered. And the American people are going around them and empower the person that came from the outside, and they don't like that network. Okay, one of our persons here on the controls has told me that we are now taking a break. And that is from WFOV. I know you'll be back in the next 4 minutes, and we'll welcome you back on the other side of your break. Okay, and they're taking their break at this time, and we're going to continue what we're doing here. I want to talk about a couple of subjects, but I wanted to lay that out there so that we are getting, and a lot of people are, in fact, getting their eyes open. I read your post on Facebook. I spent too much time, I think, on Facebook. Reading posts, but I like to read what people are saying. I really know pretty much what's going on around the world by reading the people on Facebook, because I can get around having to read the New York Times and the Washington Post. Why do I want to waste my time with those rags and get the slanted view of what's going on when I can find out from the people that's reading and then sharing the content with others on the that's on the stream, not the mainstream, but the stream that's put out there for the alternative, media, which is the way I like to spend a lot of my time, and sometimes too much time. But to read it from a person that don't have an agenda, and you'd be surprised at how much you learn and how much you know what's going on. It's amazing how as things are breaking, it's on the net. I mean, I found out about Weinstein about 5 minutes before I left for the studio, because it was breaking news, and here it was in somebody's post about the two of five counts that he was convicted of, and then there's another post that said that it means that there's a new day in terms of accountability and things like that. So I wouldn't have a leap of faith to that end, but I'm just saying that it's instant that you're getting news and you're caught up all the time just reading the alternative media. I very seldom have to. I do want to know what they're saying in the other media, but I don't necessarily tune it in as a way of getting my own information. I get a lot of it from people like the ones listening to this program, and the ones that's on the post, which I write every day, and then the ones that they're writing. There's some I pay attention to. Some of them, I don't know if they even getting to sleep. Because some of them I get back up around, I may get up about 12:30 or so, and I may want to see what's on the net. And there's some people on that side over there, as you see the column where they have people on the net that's in your entourage of friendship. And they are online. I say, do these people ever, go to bed? Do they ever get offline? Because they're the same ones on that line there. But they're trying, but these are people trying to, be a safeguard. They are the wall. It's like they are a wall between the mainstream and what they're doing, and they're trying to be about the business of putting some information out there to give people a different slant on what's going on, so they will not be all in view with what is being said by the gatekeepers, because that's who they are, the gatekeepers. These other people are gatekeepers, and it's like a firewall around that, and they're trying to congregate around some other information and sharing it with these are the warriors out there. They understand the need for Facebook, not the way that Facebook has thought of itself, but the way they're using it toward an end that Facebook may not have intended. And we need to take more control out of Facebook's hand, these censors over here and so on and so forth. But at least there's a use can be made of it to the benefit of the people here in the United States and around the world as well, because it connects up, people around the people who are the custodians of the world, because the people that run in the world are not the people that's they're on Facebook trying to find out what the natives are saying so they can maintain their hold over them, but they're not the ones that's actually out there in the front. They're the ones in the background watching everything. And I know that for a fact because that's what they do to my article. Okay, so we are very glad to be told, the timekeepers are telling me that WFOV is back, and that's the kind of, these are technicians here. I don't have to do a whole lot. They come here, and there are different ones that's monitoring the time and telling me that WFOV is back now. 92.1 is now rejoined the program. I want to thank you for coming back, and I want to thank the technicians also for keeping the time. I have a watch, but I don't use it. It's decorations. And just glad that you came back, and we're just pretty much in the same area you were when you left. Let me just end this. There's some other things I want to talk about, but I do want to say, pay attention, because there are some things that are going on right now that we've got to come to an understanding of, because we are, I guess we're doing what Larry Elder talks about. We are here to save our nation, and that is a critical call right now, because as quiet as it's kept, and as much as it is under the surface, although some of it is now leaking out, this country is under attack. And I don't even know how long that has been going on, but it's been going on for longer than we think. And I have some ideas about it, but it's a lot longer than probably any of you would imagine. I won't say when, I'm still researching it, but it didn't start yesterday. I can say that without anybody, without fear of being contradicted. So we have some work to do here between now and, give you a date, between now and November the 3rd. We do have a caller, and not caller, but a viewer, and they had a question about when will number 45 be indicted for the woman he assaulted. And so I don't know if you want to feel that, but I put it out there because somebody asked us. Yeah, 45 hasn't assaulted anyone as the president, so he's not. This is not Bill Clinton, who assaulted people both in his position as a governor, which is the head of state in Arkansas, and he did not, in fact, have anyone doing any kind of how can you put this and be nice about it? He didn't have a person in the Oval Office managing himself inappropriately in the People's House. He hasn't done that. And as to when the president will be indicted, it will be when they indict anyone else on the other side of the coin, whom none of the others who have not only done those types of things, but have in fact tried to subvert a duly held election in this country where 63 million people voted, and they tried to subjugate the voters to the will of a cabal in the United States of America, and not a single one of them has answered for it. When that happens, then we'll take care of the smaller things. But that is not something that went on while this person has been in the commanding role as a CEO of his nation. And I would like to call the attention to those who have in fact taken an oath to uphold the Constitution and have made a mockery of that oath. That's more important to me than what has gone on some decades ago in a man's life. Anybody, it's like that whole thing, if you want to get into the morality of it, it's like that whole thing that that was said when people were criticizing the impropriety of actions made by others, and as if the stone in their own eye was less than the pebble in the eyes of someone else, or the mandate of those who have no sin, then you cast the first stone. I know a lot of you would feel you are entitled to pick up a boulder and throw it. But when you understand the impropriety of everybody's experience, and all of us have something to apologize for in the past, you have to be asking of the when, where, how, and other particulars in it. And if it is in fact a violation that goes on in the people's house, the people must respond to it. Because that's all of us. Some of the things that have gone on in private, that's a different matter. Okay, I'm going to get off that, but understand the impropriety of the behavior of humankind. It's not just one individual doing that, but there are certain particulars involved and have to be dealt with based upon what the particulars are, and what if these women were violated, and they make that actionable. I have no problem with that, because if there's a violation that is personal to those persons, and they seek restitution, if it's a violation, what claims can you make against it? But I'm talking about what these officials are doing right now, and that is much more dangerous, because it's dangerous to society as a whole, and we have to deal with it as a society. Okay, let me. I came here to talk about two subjects. I need to talk a little bit about. I can't let the month get away without talking about Black History Month. And I was saying that the person that brought that into public consciousness was Carter G. Woodson, Carter Godwin Woodson, in 1926. And Woodson, who, by the way, we don't talk about Woodson as we do W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois was the first black graduate at Harvard University with a doctorate degree, a PhD degree from Harvard. And that would have taken place in 1895. But Carter G. Woodson, 17 years later, in 1912, did the same thing and came out with a PhD degree from Harvard University. And it was that person that came out in 1912 who 14 years later saw a need to fill a void based on his training and put into place what was called then Negro History Week, and had enough problems trying to get that into the public domain. Even black institutions were not called black institutions at that time; they're called Negro institutions. But even there was a problem with it, because they had bought into the idea that there was not enough history worthy of the name to study anything, and there was the Tarzan pictures and all the images were out there, and people saying "Ooga Gamuga" and what language is that, and so on, and who could believe that there was anything in back of it, given the imagery that was out there being projected by Hollywood, that was projecting Lincoln, Theodore, Commodore Roosevelt Perry, better known as Stephen Fetchit, and putting him in those Shirley Temple movies and having him scratching his head and things of that sort. Who could believe there was anything in back of that, because the imagery was so strong. And so Woodson has work cut out for him, but he at least started the process, and took 50 years from 1926 to 1976 before there was enough of a grounding point that they can now claim it as Black History Month. And that was claimed because it was a month in which it had two different persons on both of the slavery divide. Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, both born in the month of February, so therefore the idea was to put the celebration of Negro History Week, and therefore when it became a month, Black History Month, in the month of February, and we're now at the last days of it. I thought I would come to the studio and just simply say a few things about it so that we could be on the same page as we exit out of this month. And we just continue to do the study, and there's nothing that puts a barrier around the month and say it's only for this month. You can pick up a book and read anything. You can read it in March and April and May and go on with the rest of the year. But this is the month in which the founding of that commemoration put the celebration of the Negro History Week. And he did it because of the fact that February, let's see if I can think of the date here, February the 7th, I think it is, somewhere around there. I know that Lincoln was born in 1809, and I think that it might have been February the 7th. I'm going to have to go and check that date. I'm saying this off the top of my head. I know I know the year. I have to think about the exact dates. I'll get it and bring it to you next week. But the point I'm making is in that month. As for Douglas's birthday, and the date of his birth is in fact conjectural, because who kept records of the enslaved population, and as a matter of conjecture whether or not he was born in 1817 or 1818, because those records were not kept quite as specifically for persons born in the lot of Frederick Douglass and so on and so forth. But it's for that reason that this month was a month of all the months that were chosen, not because of the shortest month, as some people are claiming, but because of the fact that it was the month in which the lives of those two great men were edified, and what they achieved in history around the same issue, which was the slave issue, and therefore the capture of those birth dates, singularly was the reason why Woodson chose that month among all the other months he could have chosen. Could have chose those months that have 31 days in it because of the confusion of the Romans. the ego of the Romans who changed the calendar in Egypt, right? And so the idea of them having in Egypt 30 days for each month, and then the 5 intercalary days later on added at the end, so as to make up the 365 days of the year, and then the 0.25 that's in addition to the 365 would make up for that in a calendar that would have been 1,460 years, where you would, in fact, unlike what we do, we make a correction every 4 years. They made a correction every 1,460 years by just adding at the end of that time period a whole month. That's how they did it. We do it through leap year. But that's going back to African calendrical understandings, and that's something you have to credit Woodson for. Not that he found that out, but he made it possible for those of us that came behind what he did to look at it and then get some further understandings of it, and to understand where the Greeks got a lot of their information from in that highway, their super highway that was these valleys where they had these river valleys where civilization first stood up, because wherein it's true that you say man does not live by bread alone. Man does not live by bread alone, but he's not interested in what else is there until he's eaten. And so the Nile valleys, people were able, and not just in Nile Valley, but in these river valleys, the Tigris, Euphrates, the Nile Valley, these other river valleys, people have been able to domesticate animals and have their food supply secured, and now they're ready to look for other things, and they have a higher, they look higher, not just down here where the animals are, trying to find out how they're going to get their food, and that they look on a higher level, and they're now interested in higher things, and that's how development takes place. But don't forget here the agricultural development. Those of you who are listening to this man named Michael Bloomberg, those listening to this man who has aspirations to be president, he'll never get there, because you cannot hide your insanity forever. And he's talking about what you need to do here is, I can teach anybody to be a farmer. All you do is dig a hole, put a seed in it, cover it up, put some dirt and put some water in, then up come the corn. You could tell this man never had a job.
Well, that just shows there his detachedness from reality. Because he grew up in the cities. He's never probably even been in the country more than a few hours. Right. And he thinks everything's easy because his parlance and stuff like that, his oversight is the things like, he's already dealing with multi-billionaires. So that's all inconsequential stuff, although they'll go down to a restaurant and expect to be fed, and that's the produce of those guys that he's demeaning, basically. So I mean, that just shows the sheer arrogance of this individual, really.
Yeah, I think we're those that are asking about the escapades of Trump prior to and long before should be asking these questions about a person running to leave this country. This is much more consequential. Those that are running that want to run this country, we want people that run the country. We want not to run it. We want people to that are in the presidency that are helping us to manage the affairs of state. We don't want them running anything. We want to run the country. The American people want to run the country. It's government of the people. It ain't government of the politicians. But we need to have leaders that are on board with that, because the framers were intending for us to be in control of it. But everybody, this country, this world is made for all men and all women, all people. And Woodson was trying to hone in on the conversation and bring some other people that were excluded from the table of brotherhood, sisterhood, and humanhood, trying to bring some more people to the table so they can join in the Confederation of Humanity by making claims that they belong there because they were just as human as anyone else was, and this denial of the humanity had them excluded from the table. And he wanted to rectify that, and I think he did a very good job in a very difficult time period to bring that result about. And I want to celebrate. I don't want to let the month go without celebrating Carter G. Woodson, and I do not want him to get lost in space or lost in history, because his role is primary, and we should, in fact, understand that. Now, let me tell you what happened to me, though, in terms of, you've heard about that. John, did you hear about the outcome of the, I went over to a friend's house this weekend, and we were going to watch the fight. But before the fight, which was going to come at 9, we're going to get over to our friend's house at 7, and we're going to get over there. We're going to watch these new videos that have come out on, what is it called? Flex, some kind of network. Netflix. That's what it is, Netflix. And he's supposed to have had it all set up. We get over there at 7 o'clock. We're going to be there 2 hours watching the movies on Malcolm X, since this is also Malcolm X. This is a date in which Malcolm X was assassinated. He was assassinated February 21st, 1965. So we're going to get over there and watch the films, find out what the new information is, if any. They're now making about this man who martyred himself in 1965 for a claim that could be made more or less in a vacuum, that was made more or less in a vacuum at that time, because some things are not played out at that point, and they could stand there resolutely trying to do some things, not having what they're trying to do unfold into the future. They didn't live on this other side of what they were claiming to arrive in 2020, as we have arrived in 2020. King said on the balcony where he was that he may not get there with you, but he wanted people to know that blacks as the people will get to the promised land. We said that in 68, April the 3rd, he didn't get here to 2020. And I make the claim that those were very sane men, one slain on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel, another one, Malcolm was slain in the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan, in Harlem, where he was martyred by 5 persons that came in that Audubon Ballroom a week after they had thrown a firebomb in this man's house, and they were there on a mission to end this man's life. And the question that's raised about these men having been martyred, the question is whether or not, if they could have seen the promised land that King talked about, the quote unquote, what his vision was in 1963 in the March on Washington. The question is whether or not King is on that balcony, and whether Malcolm X goes out there to face those killers who he knew was out there in that audience. because it's one thing to be there without the story having unfolded to find out if there was merit in what they were saying and the claims they were making at that time period. Because as it's played out, is this the dream the king was talking about? Are these the people the king was saying may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land? Is that what king was talking about? These persons out here in Chicago, in Flint? That's what these martyrs, that's what Magruder was asking. Is this what King died for? If this had been the unfolding of what they were talking about at the time that they lived, if they're on that balcony doing that work and they're up there with the idea, knowing the outcome, and they're on that balcony, each one of them have to be psychotic. But not psychotic there because they were out there with the ideal not having unfolded yet. But we're here at the ideal. And we have to now reconstitute our claims and make a different effort because that claim and those efforts did not prove to be realizable based upon the kind of things that were being done through our profession of believing in leadership as a way of resolving the problem. I guess leadership will solve the problem. Everybody else stay on the sideline, and that's a paradigm that has already shown itself to be a failure because we've had that repeatedly every 20 years or so where the outcome has been the same. It's not going to happen that way. And history has taught us that lesson, and it's time for us to learn that lesson of history, if nothing else. I asked a person on Facebook, they try to find out where I am, and then in the city they come and try to jump on my post as if they have something to teach me. And I hate to be the one to break it to them, but the truth got to be told. And that includes all the ones I meet at the supermarket, all the ones that see me at the traffic light. You don't have anything to teach me. You think you do. You're out of your element. And by you thinking you have something to teach me, you're out of your mind. You're the student. You're not the teacher. And that's true of these scholars too. It's out here making these bogus claims. I'm going to call you on it. Because what you're saying to the American people, you can't say that to me. I'm a part of the American people also. And you make those claims out here like Lawrence Tribe at Harvard University and this other knucklehead, Noah Feldman, making these outrageous claims. You can make that. You can say that to other people. You can't say it here because what you say is not true. And I'm calling you on it. What you say is not true. And I've said this a number of times in my program. And this other person that called and said these other things about, you ought to talk about this on the program, they don't call. Let me give you the number because maybe you don't know the number. And don't go out here don't go out there thinking this is about the lottery. The number is 810-250, write this down, 7365. Call it any time. And let's see who has the right understanding and who does not have the right understanding. I already have the answer myself. And it'll be interesting to find out what the other answers are. But I tell you, before this debate will be over, we'll all have the same. We'll all have the same answer. And it will not be Lawrence Tribe. It won't be Noah Feldman, and it won't be Alan Dershowitz. Every time I look up those guys on TV, but look here, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, that's the Black history portion of the conversation. because we have to talk about everybody being at the table, and they have to earn their space, because everybody that is human has a history, and what history does, it invites you to the table of humanity, because animals don't make history. Go ask them what they can remember about any of their ancestors beyond their own mother. And you'll find out that they're not doing what Gates is doing over there at Harvard University, where he started out talking about the lineage of people in their past, picking up on Alex Haley's understandings to roots. Now, this professor is trying to justify his existence at Harvard University by now looking at everybody's lineage and putting it on PBS, and then it's the roots over here, roots over there, and try to get Oprah, who thought she was Zulu, and bring that into the forum. And here's this person over here from the European community, and you're going to find out what that person's roots are. All of that stuff you do, but you know, at least you can do that. But I'm just like Nawal El-Saadawi, who was named after her, I think she was named after her grandmother. She was saying that she would much rather have been named after someone that she would know, because she never met her grandmother. So here she's named after somebody that she would never know, and don't know what image she's supposed to maintain based upon that, because she never met the woman. So this thing that you have in genealogy, you can have that as far as understanding, because you're not an animal. You want to know something about your pedigree, but you don't have any contact beyond 1 or 2 generations. And so that is part of the things we need to talk about during this month. Okay, I got to get out of here. We are extending our welcome again, and we're over extending our time. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week for another edition of the program called What's Going On allpointstv.com. And thank you, Paul, for tuning us in over there at your network, 92.1. Until next time, I want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.